Yo guys, welcome back to another video of CD Hip Hop Nerds. You know we do not tolerate snitches in the hip hop community, especially when you claim to be about that life. 80s and 90s rappers were different than this new generation of rappers. One example is 6ix9ine, who still gets millions of views after snitching on a gang he was once affiliated with. Because if 6ix9ine was around in the 80s and 90s, his career would have been over. In this video we take a look at rappers who stood firm during the trial, who did not back down when they were threatened with the maximum penalty. These are the rappers who stuck to the street code. Tupac's death was almost 30 years ago now, but his name is still often mentioned, especially in connection with his life and music. Tupac rose to fame with his first album Tupacalypse Now, released in 1991. This was followed by Juice, which increased his fame even more. Tupac kept getting into trouble with the law and the police harassed him because he spoke out against the oppression of black people. A big mistake Tupac made during his career was that he started hanging out with a notorious drug dealer named Haitian Jack, who was feared by many in Brooklyn, New York. Tupac was fascinated by Jack's style of dress and lifestyle. Tupac thought if he could get close to Jack, his career would go to the next level, because in the early 90s, drug dealers had more money than rappers and rappers looked up to drug dealers. It goes back to 1993, when Tupac started dating a young girl, introduced by Haitian Jack. The woman's name was Ayanna Jackson. She and Tupac started dating until one night Tupac was with his manager, Haitian Jack, and Jack's entourage. When Ayanna arrived at the hotel where Tupac and them were, she went to Tupac's room where Tupac was waiting for her. Ayanna Jackson claims that while she was giving Tupac a massage, Haitian Jack and his entourage entered the room and began touching her private parts and eventually raping her. She claims that Tupac raped her first before others could join in. Tupac, however, denied being involved in Jackson's rape, saying he had left the room. When he returned, Ayanna was terrified and screaming. Tupac tried to calm her down, but she walked away in a rage. During the trial, Tupac and Jack's cases were split into two different trials. Tupac knew that this did not look good and that it could be a setup. Tupac kept his mouth shut and said he did not see anything and did not name names in court. In February 1995, Tupac began serving a sentence of 18 months to 4.5 years at the Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora, New York, for rape. He was found guilty of first-degree sexual abuse in November 1994, after being shot 5 times at Quad Studios by unknown gunmen, in New York. He was released on October 12, 1995 after Death Row Records boss Suge Knight posted a $1.4 million bond to get him released, and Tupac immediately signed with the label. Lil Kim became famous when he was signed to Bad Boy Records back in the 90s. Biggie Smalls noticed that she could rap and decided to talk to her to get her signed. She was in a group called Junior Mafia, which was formed by Biggie Smalls. She is known for hits like Lighters Up. But it all went south for Lil Kim when the rivalry between her and Foxy Brown culminated in a shootout on February 25, 2001, when Lil Kim and her entourage clashed with rapper Capone and Brown's friend, and his crew outside the offices of Hot 97 in New York City. More than 20 shots were fired between the two groups, with one of Capone's associates shot in the back. The shooting was Kim's reaction to Brown's verses on Capone and Noriega's joint song, Bang, Bang, in which Brown insulted Kim for mourning Biggie Smalls' death. Fast forward to 2005. Unfortunately, Lil Kim was held responsible for the shooting. The rapper was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day in prison and fined $50,000 for lying to a federal jury to protect friends involved in the shooting outside the Manhattan radio station. In view of the fact that she could have faced a 20-year prison sentence and the prosecution had demanded 3 years, her sentence was considered lenient. district judge had thought about how it would be perceived by the public if a young black entertainer was sent to prison for much longer than Martha Stewart, who spent only 5 months in prison and remains under house arrest. The rapper told jurors she did not notice two of her close friends at the scene, her manager Damian Butler and Suif Jackson, known as Gutta. Both have since pleaded guilty to weapons charges. Jurors at Lil Kim's perjury trial saw security photos of Mr. Butler opening the door for her, and 2 witnesses testified they saw her with the 2 men at the station. This means that Lil Kim spent a year in prison for protecting Damian Butler and Suif Jackson. Mysonne, who used his first name as his stage name, met representatives of One Blow Entertainment and became a member of their crew in 1997. After gracing many mixtapes with his deadly flow and participating in several MC battles in New York, he signed with 2 major brands in the hip-hop industry, the Violator Management Company and Def Jam Records. He prepared for his Def Jam debut in 1999 and participated in several projects, including the chart toppers Ride or Die, Volume 1 by the Rough Riders and Double Up by Maze. Mysonne had earned a reputation on the streets through mixtapes and battles. Mysonne had battled Big L, DMX and Shine on the streets. Mysonne's debut album Life Teaches and Reality Bites was to be released in 1999, with contributions from artists such as Busta Rhymes, Q-Tip and LL Cool J. However, his career was put on hold when he was convicted of 2 taxi robberies. The first robbery occurred in 1997 when a taxi driver was robbed and hit with a beer bottle. The prosecutor also accused Mysonne of the 1998 robbery, in which another taxi driver was robbed of a ring and cash at gunpoint. Mysonne maintained his innocence. His defense claimed that he had no reason to commit robbery because he was earning money as an aspiring rapper and songwriter for many famous artists. Mysonne said the taxi driver was not robbed but there was a physical altercation over the fare as he felt he had been overcharged by $3. Mysonne was offered a 1-year deferred sentence but pleaded not guilty and eventually had to go to court. The judge found him guilty on the 2nd of August 1999 after Mysonne admitted to committing the second of the 2 robberies in March 1998. Mysonne will end up receiving 7 years in prison for both crimes, after refusing to tell on people who committed the first crime, which carried a maximum sentence of 50 years. Mysonne eventually served 7 years in prison and was released in 2006. In 1994, John Forte was working as an A&R manager for Rawkus Records, the well-known independent rap label that soon had names like Mos Def and Pharoah Monch on its roster. Jeff Burrows, then product manager at Columbia Records, showed Forte a videotape of The Future of Music featuring a group called the Fugees. He was impressed by their talent that he decided to meet with group member Lauryn Hill, where the 2 bonded over music. One day the band was working on their second album, The Score. In the meantime, Forte was still making music alongside his day job. Hill called Forte and asked him to share what he had written. The Fugees were impressed that they asked Forte to anchor the song, Cowboys, which also featured a New Jersey rap collective called Outsidas. The Score went to #1 worldwide and has sold 22 million copies. Short Forte was officially an artist to be recognized. It would not take long. His Wyclef-produced debut album, 1998's Poli-Sci, only sold 100,000 copies. In the 90s this was a bad number, he felt like a complete failure. He was dropped by Rough House Records and fell into deep isolation. After being dropped by the label, he began to surround himself with criminals. He was offered the opportunity to take part in a criminal enterprise, mainly as a middleman between himself and the encouragers who transported what needed to be transported. In July 2000, Forte was arrested at Newark International Airport. He picked up 2 people who had already cooperated in a raid because they had been caught and arrested with 14 kilograms of liquid cocaine. He was sentenced to the mandatory minimum sentence of 14 years and incarcerated at FCI Loretto, a low-security federal prison in Pennsylvania. Forte refused to give up the names of people who were involved. After 7 years in prison, his sentence was commuted in November 2008 by then-President George W. Bush. Bobby Shmurda was born in Brooklyn, New York. His stage name is a combination of his last name, Shmurda, and the hip-hop artist, Busta Rhymes. However, he uses the pseudonym Gotti because his music is associated with the rap group GS9, which represents their eponymous crew. His rap career began in 2013 when he recorded songs under the name Bobby J Hotline and uploaded them to various online music services such as My Mixtapes and World Star Hip Hop. One of the most popular tracks he released was Hot and *******. The song later went viral on the internet and has more than 23 million views on YouTube. The song is called Shmoney Dance and was released on May 13, 2014. After the song became very popular, some people criticized it for trivializing gun violence in America. Following the success of his song, Drake used this track at the ESPY Awards. Top artists like Juicy J and French Montana began remixing the song to pique the interest of fans who could not get enough of just listening to the lyrics. On July 22, 2014, Bobby Shmurda was officially signed to Epic Records. Shmurda released a series of successful remixes. On August 29, 2014, he recorded a reggae song with Junior Reid and Mavado as well as Popcorn. On the 3rd of June 2014, Bobby Shmurda was arrested and charged with criminal possession of a weapon. Police said they saw him waving the gun around in the lobby of an flat building and then went upstairs to investigate when he tried to hide it behind some furniture in his home. This led the authorities to arrest not only Bobby Shmurda on the 17th of December, but also 14 other people, including his brother Javiz, also known as Rowdy Rebel from GS9 Records. The charges against Shmurda and his crew were serious. They included conspiracy to murder, reckless endangerment by drugs and possession of weapons. Musical prodigy Shmurda was arrested for murder after pleading not guilty and posting $2 million bail. His gang had been involved in randomly shooting people in public places long before he became famous. Police say Shmurda was a high-ranking member of his gang, the GS9, dealt in crack cocaine and engaged in deadly fights with rival gangs over territory. He faced a maximum sentence of 8 to 25 years in prison. On the 9th of September 2016, Shmurda pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy in the 3rd degree and 1 count of possession of a firearm as part of a plea deal and was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Under the plea deal, Shmurda could not appeal the sentence, but was given credit for 2 years already served, leaving him with 5 years remaining, followed by 5 years of probation. Shmurda was expected to serve only about 3.5 years with good behavior. In early 2017, Shmurda was sentenced to 4 years in prison for smuggling a makeshift knife into his cell. Shmurda was initially detained in Rikers Island. During his detention, he was involved in numerous incidents. In May 2015, Shmurda participated in a brawl involving members of the Bloods and Crip Street gangs. In 2017, he was transferred to the Clinton Correctional Facility in New York State, to finish out his sentence in protective custody. Shmurda was released on the 23rd of February 2021 under the supervision of community members in Kings County, New York. He will be on parole until the end of his full sentence on the 23rd of February 2026. That's it for this video. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell for upcoming videos.